back. You're also watching The World Today on Channels Television. Now we're taking a look at what's happening in the African continent, and of course we begin right here in Nigeria. The United States government has said it's pleased with the efforts of the Nigerian government at containing the Ebola virus disease, I beg your pardon. The U.S. Country Consul General, Mr. Jeffrey Austin, confirmed that alongside Nigeria and other international health professionals, 8 highly trained experts on Ebola virus disease from the U.S. Center for Disease Control have been involved in the containment of the disease in Nigeria. CDC Dr. John Vertifoy sees the discharge of the Ebola patients as a morale-boosting and an encouragement in the continued fight against the disease.
The CDC team, as I mentioned, about 8 people right now. They are all very firmly integrated into the Emergency Operations Center here. And we've been able to provide expertise in a number of different areas across the spectrum from general response to outbreaks such as this one, to port health security, to protective personal equipment, across a whole range of areas. And again, taking leadership from the Nigerian side and figuring out what they need.
I think it can't be overstated how important it was for the government to recognize this threat early and to take decisions based on their successful experiences with polio over the last 2 years. There is not a cure for Ebola, but there is effective treatment. The effective treatment involves monitoring the patient at the facility, looking at things like the amount of fluid that they need, looking at whether they need electrolytes, other issues that come up with the patient through their course of disease that can be managed. And if those services are provided, the number of people who survive the disease goes up considerably. And so it's been very reassuring that those patients have been receiving that care, and that care has resulted in some of them being able to go home.
One of the messages the U.S. Center for Disease Control is leaving behind is the same message that the Nigerian health authorities have been propagating, and that is the Ebola virus can only be transmitted when a person infected with the virus is down with the sickness. And if you or anyone around you have the symptoms, don't hide yourself, because early detection is very crucial to survival. Yomi Otaibo reporting for Channels Television News.
Well, now it's no longer news that 500 young Africans were beneficiaries of the Young Africa Leadership Initiative. That's a signature program of President Barack Obama's administration. And earlier this month in Washington, the Yali Fellows had the opportunity to interact with President Barack Obama's top U.S. government officials and leading U.S. businessmen, among others. However, beyond the summit, questions about monitoring the progress of investment in the young people are being raised over and over again. Well, our correspondent Adeshawa Josh covered the event in Washington, D.C., and she joins us live in studio right now. Thank you so much for joining us, Adeshawa.
Well, thank you so much, Cynthia.
Well, I'd just like to ask you, what was Yali all about? Let's forget about what you were there, so tell us, what was it about?
Okay, so, so much has been said about the leadership deficit in Africa, and what the U.S.-Africa summit was about is to find a way to bridge that. In August, we had the Yali, which is the Young African Leadership Summit, and also the African Leaders Summit. They're both held in August in Washington, D.C., and this was targeted at helping to bridge that deficit, that leadership gap, investing in the young people so that they can assume the roles of, the current leaders as soon as, they are groomed and well-groomed enough to take that, and also the current leaders to help them sharpen their skills to be able to gear Africa towards, the destination that the whole world has been looking up to it for. And that's what Yali is about. 500 young people from Africa, distinguished Nigerians, about over 40 of them were selected, and then, they were brought to the United States. Some of them will spend 6 weeks. After 6 weeks, some are expected to work with reputable U.S. outfits. And then when they gather when they sharpen their skills, they're supposed to come back home and implement certain projects.
Now, how is the progress being monitored following the conclusion of Yali?
Well, that's a question everybody's been asking. You've invested so much in these young people. How do you intend to find out how they are turning in on those investments? And I asked that question I put that question to one of the U.S. top officials while I was in Washington, and he said, look, the prerequisite of selection it details that you propose a project, all right? And then that project will be monitored by the different embassies, and then, you know, that's where they're going to be able to monitor the progress of what you're doing and how far you've gone with those projects. So when you come back home, for example, the Peju Jayoba that President Barack Obama singled out during his speech, she told me that when she gets back, she's going to establish a project that also still targets maternal care. And then when she comes back, that's what she's going to do. She gave me a couple of other details that, you know, I probably do not want to start talking about right now, but that's what she wants to do. So each of them, when they come back, they have certain projects they've pledged to do, and when they get back into the country, they will make sure there are stages of implementation, and they also have, you know, people monitoring them from both in the country and outside the country in the United States.
I certainly hope they'll do more than just pledge and talk and actually act.
From what I saw, I mean, from my experience in the States, I know that these young people are distinguished, not just from Nigeria, from across Africa, and they're very eager to come back home because the leaders we have now are not always going to be there, and they are getting ready, they're gearing up to take over from wherever they stop.
Well, thank you so much. I've been speaking with one of our correspondents, Adeshawa Josh, who was present at the just concluded Yali Summit in Washington, D.C. And that's where we leave it on The World Today. Thank you for watching. I'm Cynthia Are. Up next is Sports News.